A lot of travelers in 2026 are going to assume they're fine because they've flown for years without issues, but the system they're used to is shifting in small, easy-to-miss ways. Most problems aren't coming from dramatic events. They're coming from three simple areas: the documents in your wallet, the digital approvals tied to your passport, and how strictly your luggage and itinerary match the newer security and airline rules. People who normally feel confident at airports are the ones most likely to get surprised because they don't expect anything to go wrong until they're already standing at the counter or security line. In the United States, one of the biggest friction points is identification for domestic flights. The Real ID requirement has become the dividing line between smooth boarding and last-minute stress. A regular driver's license may look fine, but without the correct marking, it may not be accepted at TSA checkpoints. A quick visual check is usually enough, since compliant cards have a star indicator. Without it, travelers often end up scrambling for a passport or alternative document, while the line keeps moving. A newer idea being introduced is a backup identity verification process at airports for people who arrive without proper ID, but it is not guaranteed, comes with fee, and still may not allow boarding if verification fails. That makes it more of an emergency fallback than a real travel strategy. For frequent travelers, the simplest solution remains updating to a compliant ID or carrying a passport as a reliable backup. Once travelers clear identity checks, they often assume the hardest part is over. But airline policies around delays and refunds can also create unexpected problems. When flights are changed or canceled, airlines may offer credits or alternative routes that look convenient at first glance. The issue is that accepting these options too quickly can remove the right to request a refund later. Significant schedule changes, long delays, airport switches, or downgraded cabins can qualify for compensation or refunds, but only if travelers don't immediately agree to the replacement itinerary. Keeping records like screenshots, emails, and receipts becomes important because it helps support any future claims if the trip is disrupted. International travel adds another layer of complexity, especially for those entering or passing through the United States. Visa rules and entry restrictions have been shifting, with certain categories of travelers affected depending on nationality or visa type. Even when a traveler is not directly impacted, the overall environment at airports can feel more cautious, with stricter questioning and longer processing times in some cases. This is why many travelers are advised to apply for visas early, double-check passport accuracy, and ensure that any renewed passport details are updated across bookings and travel authorizations. Even small mismatches in passport numbers can cause delays or complications. In the United Kingdom, another major change is the introduction of the electronic travel authorization system for visa-exempt visitors. This is a digital approval linked directly to a traveler's passport and must be completed before departure. Airlines are required to verify it before allowing boarding, meaning travelers without it may never reach the gate. The process itself is simple and done online, but the key detail is that it is tied to the passport used during application. If the passport is renewed, the authorization no longer matches and must be reapplied for. This creates an easy mistake point for frequent travelers who update documents without realizing the digital link is broken. Across Europe, border control is also becoming more technologically advanced with the entry-exit system, which replaces traditional passport stamping with biometric checks, such as fingerprints and facial scans. This means that instead of collecting stamps as proof of travel, records are stored digitally. For first-time users, the process may take longer because of enrollment, but future entries are expected to be faster once the system recognizes a traveler. However, during peak travel times or early rollout phases, delays can still happen, especially at major entry airports where many passengers are being processed at once. Another upcoming system affecting Europe is the ETIAS authorization, which is expected to be required for travelers from visa-exempt countries. It functions as a pre-travel clearance, similar in concept to other electronic travel approvals used globally. It is expected to be quick to complete, valid for multiple years, and linked to passport, but it does not guarantee entry. Border officers still make the final decision upon arrival. As with other systems, errors in passport information or applying with an old document can invalidate approval, requiring a new application. Within Europe itself, travel rules are also changing in ways that affect budgeting and planning. Some countries are transitioning into different currency systems, while others are adjusting how tourism time limits are enforced within regions like the Schengen area. This affects long-term travelers who previously moved between nearby destinations to reset stay limits. If more countries join shared travel zones, those strategies may no longer work the same way. At the same time, tourism-heavy cities are introducing entry fees, reservation systems, or visitor limits during peak seasons to manage crowding. Popular destinations are increasingly focused on controlling volume rather than encouraging unlimited foot traffic. Accommodation rules are also tightening in certain cities, especially around short-term rentals. Platforms are being required to verify listings more strictly, and some cities are restricting or removing key pickup systems that used to make self-check-in simple. This reflects a broader shift toward regulated tourism infrastructure, where informal or unregistered stays are becoming harder to operate. Airport security itself is also inconsistent in ways that surprise travelers. Liquid restrictions, for example, are not applied uniformly across all airports or even all terminals. While some locations have tested relaxed rules with advanced scanning equipment, many still enforce strict limits on container size. Because of this inconsistency, the safest approach is still to assume standard liquid restrictions apply everywhere. Packing travel-sized toiletries and keeping medications accessible reduces the chance of issues during screening. All of these changes connect to a larger pattern in global travel. Systems are becoming more digital, more automated, and more dependent on accurate personal data. That also means small mistakes that used to be ignored can now create bigger consequences. A wrong passport number, a missing online authorization, or an unupdated booking can stop a trip before it even begins. The practical response for travelers is not to panic, but to be more methodical, checking documents before booking, leaving more time between connections, and verifying entry requirements a few days before departure can prevent most issues. Flexibility is becoming more valuable than ever because travel plans today are more likely to shift due to policy, technology, or operational changes outside of travelers' control. In the end, the experience of traveling is not becoming impossible, but it is becoming less forgiving of assumptions. The people who adjust early to these new systems will move through airports with fewer disruptions, while those relying on old habits may find themselves dealing with delays or unexpected barriers at the worst possible moment.